but our match is starting and we go on to descend for the second time and unfortunately the last time in Trackmania Grand League, as of course these maps are only present for 2 steps at a time. Of course they'll spend free, if in maps, step 2 for example, there was free maps for step 1 and there was free maps for step 2, and here we have got 3 maps left that were the risky ones for step 2, and we've got 3 new maps which are now the risky ones for step 3. And next week, of course, they'll be the safe ones for step 4. We can only await to see what maps will be coming at us next week, but because I feel like it's kind of the ante's being upped every single week we go into.
Yeah, I already seen Spam streaming them yesterday. I think I have some sort of TTC testing there, just having fun with Riolo, Matt, and someone else. And yeah, what to say? They look unique at least. It seems like every time the identity gets a little bit more unique, and every time the map gets a little bit more unique. A guy that should be happy about that is Matt, and also a guy should be happy about that is Massa's favorite for today, Bren. I mean, Bren was in the grand final of the beta season. He's number 16, and people don't speak about it as a surprise. I mean, Bren, of course, he's in Australia, but my inside info says that he has trained this week. This has been the week he actually had time to train, so not a bad bet there for Massa.
Certainly not, but here we go. We are getting underway and it will be Descend, the destination of map number 1 out of 6. Lap number 1 out of 6, and starting with what seems to be position 1 out of 16 at the moment as Massa actually joined up there with Cocow. So first things first in this map, we need to watch out for that jump. We've seen a few people get claimed by that specific part there, a few kind of bumps being had when they jump in between the kind of transition between the blocks, but this is a map which looks kind of deceiving. I mean, situations like this where you're going through a fast turn and into a jump, it's a lot more difficult than it looks. I mean, I can vouch for that myself. I've played the Open Grand League in these sort of maps, and really it is something that you need to keep your eyes open at all times. You can't afford to take your foot off the gas. You can't afford to let your mind wander. This is truly one of the maps as a perfect example which may look easy but will demand all of your concentration at all times.
Yeah, that's for sure. And talking about Massa, our guy that we is more or less supporting on this, he placed 8 on this when he played it last time, but already a big mistake from his countryman Revolution, who is down.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for the first time, I've seen ourselves going into the identity. And one of the important things about this identity, again, that I can vouch for myself, is that you can do it a way of which works for yourself and is safe and all the rest of that. However, although it may look simple and it may look like you can't gain much time from it, as you can see here as we move up to CarlJr, who's already in the lead by a second over Massa, who done it a bit more safe. Of course, the identity does lead itself to rewarding risks more often than some other ones, as of course you've got a lot of steps you're bouncing down there. That's a lot of chances to optimise your line and optimise your time as much as possible. So again, looks can be deceiving. It might look simple, but I can assure you it definitely is not. But I suppose that's kind of a story for TMGL, is it not?
Yeah, of course, that is a story. Good player from the last step here. Orwell is also down, but we shouldn't look too much into this. This map 1, people maybe getting warmed up more or less, don't taking this map too seriously, so yeah. I mean, what happens on map 1, nobody remembers in the map 6 once we conclude the step.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, seeing here, we do already see a kind of pack breaking out a little bit here. It always seems to be that there is packs, you know, breaking out in of course, the field of Trackmania Grand League, but we do see Riolu actually dropping out from that. And of course, the forerunner of this pack is coincidentally Pack. So we do see the MnM player now rocking, you know, his lovely actual MnM skin instead of some random one of which is assigned by the game, chasing down Scrapie here. So Orgulous player now, Scrapie, do you think him no longer being involved with Existence, do you think that's going to positively affect him or negatively affect him?
I think it's both cases here. From the streams I heard him, he said that he didn't want to actually qualify into the playoffs because then he would play for Existence and then potential other orgs will see him as taken. Now he's free for other orgs. But I also heard in a chat that Scrapie doesn't know that he's sure that he can go to Lyon. Now he cannot pay that trip, or now he has to pay it himself, I assume, since now he doesn't have an org. So both cases, but I think it's actually good because the motivation just to showcase himself, show that he is one of the best players in the world, and maybe get one big org that actually cares about him, and not like Existence, who didn't give a F about Trackmania and Scrapie himself. So kind of sad that that org didn't care about him, because we all know how talented Scrapie is.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he has been one of the players who's been consistently competing in these kind of style of tournaments, you know, the likes of your Zerator Cup has been your other examples. And again, he has been, you know, one of the cream of the crop for quite a long time now. And it is a shame to see that some of the players were, you know, not getting as nice a slice of the pie as some others. But I mean, I suppose that's the nature of the beast going into a competition like this, when you do have players who might be taking just a little bit of the spotlight when you look at names like CarlJr. Or when you look at names of which are also used to seeing the spotlight in some other kind of ways, where your man Riolu, who actually finds himself chasing down our man Massa. So fourth position for Riolu, and third position for Massa, looking quite good so far, despite finding themselves a little bit far behind the top two.
Yeah, might have said that this map doesn't matter overall. Players warmed up. But maybe Massa is one of the players that this map mattered for, not in terms of just points, but to get this momentum that he speaks about, to get this confidence. If Massa does well here, he can just be scarier and scarier. Imagine he used the momentum he gained here on map 2, map 3, and essentially Massa is one of the big winners here, but that's too early to call. Maybe I jinx him now, let's see, but good so far for our man Massa here.
Exactly. We're just about moving on to lap number 5 here. We'll be finishing up on Descend momentarily, but as we say that, Massa going for a really kind of unorthodox line there, nearly flying off the track, so the caster's curse has been stalled temporarily at the very least. But we do also, just to remind those, we do have 2 extra points up for grab for the best lap, and at the moment that is held by Scrapie, who is on the hunt for CarlJr. And I suppose one way of looking at it, now that Scrapie doesn't have an org, I expect him to be hunting for these €100.
Yeah, that's a good thing, that maybe the €100 is going to essentially pay his trip to Lyon, where he can gain more money, right?
Yeah, exactly. I suppose it comes in swings and roundabouts a little bit there. But, I mean, CarlJr is still in the lead, holding a 3/10s gap. And it does kind of break down a little bit towards the rest, with Massa falling up in 3rd, Kappa 4th, Riolu 5th, and Tween 6th. But we do see the man of which people were saying to keep an eye on, Bren, having a better performance this time, up in 6th position. But as you were saying there, it doesn't really pay much dividends to be really good in the first steps and then not so good in the last steps. But we've heard Bren has been putting a lot of effort into the last steps, so even still, his performances in steps 1 to 3 might be very important, as if he's looking for this to be his golden step, so to speak, then he will want to get as much points as possible from all steps.
Do you want a fun fact? Who has won the map 1 and map 2 on the previous steps?
Who's won map 1 and map 2? Hit me with it.
Or map 1 in both steps, sorry. That is the guy who is in front now. CarlJr won map 1 on step 1. He won map 1 on step 2. So it doesn't look like CarlJr needs a warm-up. He's like Conor McGregor this night. He just goes straight at it. 40 seconds and it's over. CarlJr is ready once again. Maybe goes for a hat-trick here when he's talking about map 1. And he's one of the players that can actually get the points from this map into his total score, just because he is CarlJr. He might be a level above the rest when it comes to consistency, and also just about to pace himself. Last lap here.
Yeah, exactly. Last lap. And going into this, we actually see Matt stealing the lap record by over half a second. And I mean, I suppose that's almost to be expected from Matt, a kind of renowned trickster, so to speak. And he is going to be in a position of some power to decide, you know, a lot of these points going down between Riolu, Massa, and even close to Scrapie, depending on how well he hits that. So we're going to keep an eye on him as Massa goes for a really inside drift, loses a lot of speed. So it's going to be down to the battle between Matt and Massa here. I suppose it sounds like I'm just saying MEs all the time, but Matt messes it up now a little bit, and that's going to allow Massa a little bit of a real road back in. But Bren flies ahead, steals 4th place, and even Rollin manages to get his nose ahead. But the most important position is, of course, number 1, and that's CarlJr securing yet another €100. We see Scrapie in 2nd, Riolu 3rd, Bren getting 4th with a great last lap surge there, Rollin 5th, Matt drops down to 6th, Massa 7th, Kappa 8th, Pack falls to 9th, Tween 10th, Aurel 11th, Spam 12th, Papou surprisingly down in 13th, Cocow 14th, Revel 15th, and MarciN 16th. So a few surprises down there, Ed. Likes of Papou all the way down, and Matt having a nice performance up at the top. So a few surprises both ways, I would say.
Yeah, but what isn't a surprise is that I'm leading 1-0 in the side bet. Kappa beat Tween with an 8th place to a 10th spot there. So yeah, 1-0 for me. And doesn't seem like any in the chat has done a side bet, so I take those points and 1-0 for the chat as well. Let's go into the second map. I will have you the honor. You need help. Who will win this? You pick first.
Right, so we're going into Bunny Hop, which is the next map. So I'm going to pick, I'm going to take Reeler here, I think. I remember him performing strongly last time. I believe he was just edged out by Kappa, if I remember correctly. But I'm going to see if you're just going to go old and boring with the same pick 2 times in a row, or if you're going to try and freshen it up to defend your title.
Someone else with Kappa, so I could save him for this, because Kappa, as you said, won this in a close battle with Riolo. Riolo hit the multi-lap on the last finishing line there. I was scared that he actually going to lose his point, but finishing 1 second behind. Okay, so I don't go with Kappa because he won this step. I won this map last time. That's a bit boring. Let's go so spicy bet. I go with MarciN. MarciN placed 5th on this map the last time, and yeah, wasn't too far off. You remember it was a close battle for a 3rd spot as well that Orwell got. So MarciN, this is maybe his best map so far in Trackmania Grand League. So let's see if the polish was one and done on that map last time, or if it actually improved even more this time and can get 100 euros to Poland.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it is, I would say MarciN, despite having, you know, kind of his first step, of course, last week, I would still say that, to be honest, I mean, a lot of these other players, with a few exceptions, are players that are known quantities from different styles of tournament. Example, Aurel might be new to Trackmania Grand League, but Aurel is not new to these type of tournaments, of course. Zerator Cup boasting multiple styles, and also numerous kind of smaller French-based cups basing themselves upon multiple styles. We do see Aurel frequent quite a lot. I would say that MarciN still, you know, we don't know too much about. We don't see him as much now, so I'll definitely be interested to see how he goes in here. But we'll start off map number 2 once again with our man Massa, starting off Bunny Hop and looking to start off at least from where he left off in the last map. He had a strong performance at least on map number 1. Lost a few positions at the end, but showing his teeth as Massa, I would say.
Yeah, just bringing up, I've done a lot of breaking down some stats here, and Massa finished 7th. That might not be too good as we saw his potential there, but Massa on step 1, he finished 12th on map 1, and he finished 15th on a step, or map 1 and step 2, so this is Massa's best start to a step ever, and like you said, he might be this momentum-based player, so this is only positive for Massa that he actually is among the top 8 now. Maybe it builds up his confidence here, and let's see what he can do on Bunny Hop.
For sure, and we've heard that, of course, from him that he's changed up his kind of procedure of training to include more of the first 3 maps instead of just focusing on, you know, the danger zone maps, if you will. But I mean, players who have at least got caught out on this map already, we see Rollin already about 12 seconds behind here, Cocow falling down as well. So I mean, the Air France Cup clearly didn't prepare him well for flying around on Bunny Hop, unfortunately. But we do also see a big mistake by Revolution, I would say, for Revo especially. I mean, we saw a really tremendous performance out of him on step 1 until he lost all of his points in the last map, but since then I would say it's been quite underwhelming for Revolution, a player who was known for his kind of prowess and endurance maps. But yeah, he's not really putting his money where his mouth is, I would say.
Yeah, and that was worrying me about. I was joining Marius89, who is casting Revolution, who is his personal caster. Before this, I joined him around 6 o'clock, and he said he hasn't got an answer for Revolution if he actually trained this time. Revolution has been offline, hasn't been showing some time, so that is not a good sign. Maybe it's been offline, but so far it doesn't look promising for Revolution. But yeah, a man from Brazil is first Matt. Who would have thought that?
Yeah, well, I suppose I would say that earlier on, Matt, having been one of the least competitively experienced people, having not participated in nearly as many tournaments as some of his opponents, he's really warming to Trackmania Grand League now, and we're seeing more and more people wanting to put him towards their bets, and I can certainly see why. I mean, he's in the lead and he's looking good to keep it for now.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think a lot of players actually, or people pick him in the betting like this because of his map 6, where it's tricky. The more tricky the map is, the more it suits Matt. But our player Massa is also in the battle there. maybe Massa is actually popping off a good step here. Maybe it's actually securing himself a spot in Lyon. I believe in Massa, but that's not a good sign if I believe in you, I guess.
Yeah, exactly, as we are the definition of a curse, pretty much. But, I mean, I suppose the way to look at this is I'm already looking in map number 1 and 2 to see who is the people who are, you know, looking like they're going to have a good step. Like, example, Papou has had some issues in map number 1, but we're seeing Bren finding himself much more closer to the top positions than he was last week, for example.
Yeah, it's night and day from what we see from Bren today. We're actually competing in the step 1, step 2. He is number 16 in the league. I cannot clarify that enough that he actually is last in the league. Now it's up there. It's night and day. Bren is back, and I believe Bren will show that he is not done just because he left Solary for Lunary. He's still in it.
Yeah, exactly. He's still in it, and he's still, of course, one of the most capable players. And again, I would suppose I'd put him in the same kind of category as your players like Matt, who are kind of renowned for being able to pull off, you know, very interesting techniques and very complex maneuvers. I mean, he's came from a very strong RPG background. Whereas some of your other players are come from more well-rounded or styles which aren't as well suited to this. Like, say, for example, your players coming from tech. Who might not be as well suited to things like this. But I definitely think that Bren and Matt, the more they warm to this competition, the more preparation they get, that they can only get better as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, a good point there. Matt is actually saying that the more training he has, the less it suits him because he is one of the faster learners. So maybe once players start to maybe not take this competition as seriously, maybe once they see themselves qualified fully on, then Matt is going to pop off because he's a talent that learns pretty quickly. But honestly, I'm really surprised that Matt is up there battling for the top position on this map. That was like number 14 or something, like 12 something. Oh, Massa is done. Oh man.
Uh-oh. Oh no.
That's a DNF there for Massa, I guess.
Nah, he's just respawned, so at least, you know, he will at least finish, I suppose.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the top, the two tricksters. And then you have a player that is good at everything. That's CarlJr. Will CarlJr take map 2 as well? I mean, this bank account of his is starting to get big.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, CarlJr, I've almost lost count of the amount of maps he's won over TMGL, like just through the beta seasons and through.
Ask me. I know.
But I mean, to be honest, we're very lucky that we do have an expert. We do have Mr. Stats himself. So tell us.
So CarlJr won 17 maps in the beta season when it was 15 maps. Now already has won 4 maps, 2 from each step. So already if he wins this map, he will be at an all-time high from this Winter 20 edition. And then you have 4 maps left to be played. Can CarlJr get 6 out of 6? None has won every map so far. I mean, CarlJr won 4 out of 5 maps on a step as well as pack. That is the record. But maybe CarlJr is gonna just show everybody, okay, I'm leading this league, but I'm not gonna take this less serious. I'm actually gonna prove just how dominant of a Trackmania player I am. The player of the last decade is maybe a contender for player of this decade as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing about CarlJr that people might forget because he's been in the scene and he's been dominating for so long, CarlJr isn't old. Like, CarlJr is not an old player. I mean, it says a lot when I think it was Spam who was the oldest player out of everyone else, of course. And to consider that the both of them were competing at the same World Championships of which Spam won, and, you know, Spam's the oldest, and Carl, I would say, as far as I remember, Carl's 21 or 22, if I remember correctly.
23, but yeah.
Oh, well, you know, close enough. But the main point is that CarlJr still, it's not as if he's coming near the end of his career span.
Yeah.
The only thing that will ever stop CarlJr is how much he values the time he's putting in Trackmania. But, I mean,
Bren?
yeah, I was just about to say, Bren actually made a mistake and fell in one of the holes. And coming into the end of lap number 6, that is a lot of points having been lost for Bren. And, yeah, I mean, that's a potential, what, 20 points, 14 points, having gone completely down the drain just because he tried to risk to keep up with CarlJr. So, I mean, you look at it this way. I mean, sure, the map number 1 to 3, you might feel it might not matter as much, but when you're looking at Kappa, who will really need a good step to get as much points, Bren, who will really need a good step to get as much points as possible, throwing away easy points like that is really something you want to avoid.
Yeah, and just for the side bet, you got 10th, I got 11th. So we are not good, but we at least yeah, beating the chat because I don't see any bets there. But our man Massa down at 16th place, so the momentum I talked about didn't help him too much. But let's see if he can regain his focus on the next map.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose again, it's one of these things where you never truly can plan out or predict how it's going to go. As I mean, we saw previously in the step 1 and 2 in one of the maps of which was contained in there, we saw who was it again? Papou having a performance in the NADEO map. I believe it was Bolide Snake, which was 4 seconds faster than the winning time previously. And you had CarlJr second, who had driven the winning time from last week. Yet he still was, I think, second or third position. So you really can't predict how it's going to go down. But at least for this one, Cliffhanger, we're going to have the last of the Step 2 maps. This will be the last time we'll see these maps. Are you looking at these maps with a fond farewell, or are you glad to get rid of maps like Cliffhanger?
I'm talking about Cliffhanger itself. Well, this is a historic map, of course. This was the CarlJr where he lost his point, so maybe this map I would keep. But just remember, these maps can come back for a potential playoff, like we saw in the beta season, where 10 maps will be picked. I'm not 100% sure about how many maps will be picked for a playoff, but maybe this is one of the maps that comes back. Or maybe CarlJr can talk to Hillis and say, yeah, I don't like this map too much.
Yeah.
But side bet, who do you pick here?
Right, so who do I pick here? I'm going to go for a bit of an unorthodox pick, since he did lose all of his points here, but I'm going to stay true. I'm going to stay with CarlJr. He's won step 1 and he's won map 1 and 2. I think the streak continues. I think he gets revenge on Cliffhanger.
Then I'm gonna take the player that dethroned CarlJr in 2016 when he won the World Championship. It's Pac, who is one of the players that people brought up as one of the players that has disappointed them the most this season. Obviously, in the last group stage in the beta season, he was with CarlJr, one of the 2 dominant forces. So far, not proving himself too much. Pac needs to get up there and get some points to secure himself a spot in Lyon. So I picked the British player Pac.
For sure. I mean, in terms of you seeing him being a disappointment, I mean, when you're looking at this step so far, 12 points is really quite underwhelming for what you would be expecting of a player of his caliber. But I mean, myself, I would kind of put that down to a kind of big rise in competition from the beta season. But one of the other players who I suppose continues to be a bit of a disappointment is Revolution. That's another mistake being made, and given that he's bottom in points, only on 5. I would really say that this really isn't good enough for Revolution. He's a player of which people were expecting big things from. He was a player that people, especially after step 1, considering he even lost all of his points, but people were looking at him thinking he's one of the players which can challenge for the top spots. Really, I'm not impressed so far. I don't mean that to be disrespectful to Revel, but I really think he can be performing better. And I hope to see that from him going forward, as you know, map 1, 2, and 3 are just not going his way. I think that's fair to be said.
Yeah, that's for sure. Maybe he should be happy that he's in a team at the moment because he cannot be kicked, but maybe he won't be a player for the next season if he continues like this. We know that Softie is pretty hard on this, so players need to perform, and now one of the guys who struggles the most is my pick for the last map, MarciN. He is 20 seconds and more behind already.
But we're looking straight away starting into Cliffhangers. We were just midway through lap number 2 here. We're seeing Pac, when we're talking about him as a disappointment, I mean, he is down in 11th here at the moment, and I mean, he's already a second and a half behind. I mean, from Pac's performances up to this point, I mean, we're seeing him only just scraping into the top 8 in the league ranking. How would you say people are feeling him being a disappointment? Would you agree with that, or would you feel differently?
I think the reason people call him a disappointment is not because he's one of the players that is worse than this. It's just because you have so high expectations of Pac. People might even claim that he is one of the best players of Trackmania of all time. So of course we expect him to be like CarlJr, who is winning maps, who's taking a lot of points, a player that you can almost just pick and book a hotel for Lyon before the tournament starts. He's just so talented, but now he's battling for even making it into Lyon. So, as well, I will also say that Pac so far has disappointed me, not because he's bad, but just because I expect so much from him.
Yeah, I suppose, but what I like about this tournament and this format, although it may be controversial, is you have things like that. You have people like Pac who are some of the best players in the world who are not winning everything. You know, who are not always getting top 2. They're not always getting top 3 because this is such a hard format, because the point system is so unforgiving. The players are so difficult. We see players like Pack struggling even to get top 8 as they drop down into 9th position behind Spam. We see players like our previous Beta League champion Kappa down in 2nd to last position, even battling with who we said was our chief disappointment in Revolution at the moment. So, I mean, in terms of this, I think instead of watching the battles at the back though, we need to take a look up at the top, because our boy Massa is ruling the roost here ahead of Tween. So, I mean, this is looking good.
Yeah, but remember,
oh,
it's not
wait.
Over. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, here we
the same story as the last step for Massa here. He failed it on lap 6 then, but now, once again, the map is broken for our man Massa. But let's get back into the top. This is last time we just battled for the top. Nobody loses points here, so everybody's safe. And just to bring up the question from the chat, nobody has clean swept step so far. Like I said, CarlJr and Pack did it in a beta season. They got 4 out of 5 maps win. And so far, the best is 2 out of 6 in the Winter 20 edition. But it doesn't look like CarlJr is gonna do a clean sweep here. Once again, these maps seem to take him down. So 2-0 for this map once it comes to CarlJr.
Yeah, I suppose it's like us and Lillehammer pretty much, but I mean, in terms of CarlJr in this map, he is clearly struggling in it, and maybe it's perhaps some sort of technique that he's just not comfortable with. I mean, this map in this tournament throws so many techniques at you, which are quite difficult to manage. I mean, especially with seeing a lot of techniques introduced from Open League players, as of course the players, the Grand League players, I'm sure would have been keeping a keen eye on what the Open League players were doing. We see Papou actually, as we're spectating him going over the identity, jumps too far and has to respawn as well. So that's 2 of our top performers from this and last step down already.
Yeah, that's for sure. But looking at top, it's Tween who has got a lot of points or a lot of lead down to Riolo and Pack. So I picked Tween to actually win step 1. I believe I picked him to win step 2. Now he's not in my top 5 at the betting league, and you know what? Now he's actually performing. So yeah, the curse is gone. Now Tween is free, and he's looking to win this map.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, if we want something to happen, we're just going to say the opposite to it. I think that's just going to be the way it is. But I mean, in terms of this, I mean, Tween obviously performing very well, and I'm thinking that as long as he keeps himself strong, I mean, Tween is the kind of player where he does not crack under pressure. Tween is one of the, I would say, especially in this field, probably the most storied player in Trackmania in terms of how many tournaments he's been to, how many strong placings he's got. I mean, there's not many that can compete for that title, as of course, I mean, he's been to not only your World Championships like CarlJr has, but also all of your Gamers Assemblies and all of your kind of European tournaments. So I think tournament experience is definitely something Tween has in the bag, which few can match.
But what it doesn't have so far in Trackmania Grand League is actually a map win. So this will be his first one, the first €100 potentially going to Tween. And also, I believe this has to be the first €100 going to American org in Pittsburgh. So maybe they are happy, maybe they are cheering for Tween. They are at least solid on Twitter. So I like Pittsburgh, but I also like Tween. So let's see here. Pack, it's too far, 1.2 seconds, then Tween has to fail, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Tween has to make some sort of mistake. I mean, Pack's good, but I don't think he's quite that good. But I suppose this is a map where Pack's perhaps kind of throwing it in the face of all of those naysayers to say that, look, I can perform on these maps and I can bring in some really good points, as well as, of course, he is currently the fastest lap leader as well, extending quite a little bit of a gap over Riolu. And if I remember correctly, this was quite a well suited map for Pack previously, but checking out Tween as he goes through it for the last time, he gets through it cleanly. Let's make sure everyone else does. They're all fine. Aurel looks good, Matt looks good, and following up in the top 8 is Cocow. So I mean, that would have been a lot of points lost if this was last week. We would have seen CarlJr losing his points again. Kappa, Revo, Scrapie, Papou, Rollin, Massa, and MarciN. That's a lot of big names down at the bottom 8, and we've seen that consistently though this week and last week. Would you say it's something about this map, or would you just say it's more of a it's just more of a habit almost?
I think this block that is in the end where you essentially once you land on it, you just have to go straight forward or back. You cannot steer. this is one of the newer blocks we saw introduced for Serrator Cup. So maybe this is one of the blocks that these players aren't that used to. I mean, you talked about Spam and CarlJr playing in 2012 already. They have seen more or less every turn possible in tech, but they haven't seen this block for too long. Like I said, it's less than a year old. So yeah, halfway through the step. But if you remember, this is when the step starts. This is when the points will be lost. This is when story will be created. This is where players will secure themselves a spot in Lyon. Do you see already someone that you believe will come back from the 9 to 16 spot and essentially claim up their rankings on map 4, 5, and 6?
Yeah, well, there's two players who are standing out to me, but I'm not going to spoil your fun and steal both of them. I'm going to take a look and I'm going to see straight away, I'm going to see Kappa, who's actually 13th position here on only 12 points. I mean, considering he's not lost any points from the first 3 steps, he's just unfortunately been dealing with some bad positions. And to be honest, with Kappa being second in the league standings, if I'm correct overall,
Yep.
then really I would have been expecting him to be getting himself back into the top 8. But I'm thinking there's some other names you're looking at there as well.
Yeah, but just so we have a 5-minute break, I don't believe Massa is going to join us, so we actually have time to do some. We can go at the current league ranking, the virtual league ranking. CarlJr is leading. Riolo has overtaken Kappa there. And also, we see Spam now claiming up the ladder. He's number 8. But yeah, let's see who I pick for this. Papou, I think Papou is going to be one of the guys to actually gain a top 8 position, maybe a top 3 position as well. But just to clarify something, I say that now everything starts, and people bring up that map 6 is maybe the most important map. I just did some research or just did some stats, and the map that is taking the most amount of points away from players is map 4. You have used 3 maps to build up points, then you head into map 4 where you essentially can lose all the points. Players have lost 333 points just on map 4 alone, so if you have 3 good maps, everything can be broken here, while other players can catch up and start to build up points. So map 4 is maybe underrated. It's maybe one of the more important maps because this maybe creates a storyline. Can I keep the points or not?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I suppose having built up all points from 3 maps previously, I mean, plenty of hopes and dreams can be as broken as your casters here, to be honest. But, I mean, in terms of this, I'm looking at this and seeing a lot of potential here. We're seeing from positions 3 down to 10, there is 8 points separating them. So I'm seeing a lot of people who are sitting here thinking, not only are they thinking that they want to be getting themselves good positions, of course, but they've got, like for example, if Aurel has 1 good map, then that's him climbed a lot of positions, of course. Well, it's your total points which go towards your league ranking. That's still going to be a lot of points. He's going to be ahead of other people. So, of course, going more and more on the way to secure himself a spot in Lyon.
Yeah, and just to talk about the current top 8, we have to talk about top 8 a lot because this is essentially what this group stage is all about. 4 out of the 8 players in the top 8 at the moment on this step is not top 8 in the leaderboard overall. So we can have a lot of shifters after this step is over. So nobody's safe as just CarlJr, I guess, for Lyon. And I'll also put Riolo and Kappa in there, but the other 5 players shouldn't be safe. They should have to no life every step because yeah, there are hungry players here. There are good players. So once a good step and players are in there, maybe Matt can be one of these players that actually secure himself a spot now. People predicted him to be good on map 6. Well, he seems to be good on the step overall with a 4th position here. I never think he's been this high before.
For sure, and to be honest, now that we're coming up to essentially the halfway mark in the season, I'm going to be especially looking to the end results of these, not only to see who's first, but see who manages to keep some points through the whole of the maps. Because, I mean, as if we're seeing, for example, many players who are capable, Bren, Revolution, Massa, Matt, Scrapie, I mean, all these people finding themselves in the bottom 8, of course, pending the results of this step. I mean, if all of them get even, say, 40 points a step or something like that, that's putting everyone in danger, of course. Even if they don't manage to hit that much, Scrapie manages to get a good few points, that's putting people like Pac or Rel in danger. And I mean, well, I think CarlJr can rest on his laurels, because while he might lose first, I don't think he's going to lose all 8 positions. To be honest, I think everyone should... Some people might be more comfortable than others, like certainly Riolo and Kappa, but certainly people like Tween, Papou and Aurel, their work isn't yet done.
Yeah. And just some fun facts about Matt himself. Matt is 4th place at the moment. If you look at his placement after the break so far, he has never finished below or above the 9th position. He has lost points on every map. He has finished below 9th. So this is going to be a real testing stone for Matt. Can he actually keep his points, or will this just be another step where after a break, well, it's red positions for the Brazilian players as well with Pack. I believe he has finished of the 6 potential maps. He's finished a red position 4 times. So yeah, Pack is also to prove himself here because now everything starts in 1 minute here. Time to do a side bet, or have we done that already?
Well, I don't think we have done the side bit, but going into the new maps, I mean, I know there's a few players we just haven't went for overall, but I mean, if we go back on to watch the warm-up to get an idea, so we're going to be on Mini XXL. Now, the first of the new maps. Now, we do remember Massa stating that he was not feeling comfortable on this map, so a bit of a concern, of course, for the home crowd going into this here, but this is a map which I've heard is not as difficult as some of the other ones. The identity is, if I remember correctly, based upon a no grip block where you go onto it and your card does not have any more grip, although it is one of the less difficult maps, I would say, overall. It doesn't have specific techniques that you need to worry about, so I'm going to say some players going in at just pure pace, and I'm going to say one of those of which I've been hearing has put in a lot of practice. I'm going to go for Bren.
Oh, you go for Bren, yeah. Okay, then I go for my overall pick for this whole step. I go with Scrapie. But let's see if Scrapie can actually show that he has been one of the more solid players in this training, like he was on a rock or roll. But both time we saw that being played out, well, he failed pretty hard. I believe his best place was 8th, and then another place was did not finish. But let's see if the chat has any side bet. Who will win this map? So far, you have been pretty lazy. No bets, I believe.
Yeah, that's just not good enough, guys. You're supposed to be deposing us of our job. But here we go anyway. A lot of people going for the inside pole move on the first lap, as it does appear to be faster, as we've heard. Outside pole will be the main line of which you'll see people going for. But Massa starting off strong, as of course he stated he didn't feel too comfortable on this, but we have seen it at the very least in training from a lot of players. Very many players are capable of performing well here. It's all going to come down to the final block, essentially, where it's going to be based upon, again, one of these new blocks you were talking about, new blocks introduced in the Zerator Cup map. Again, a bit more controversial, I would say, as as I was discussing with Eric Holder previously, it's very hard to explain how this block actually works, but you'll see it coming up here in just a second or two. Of course, when you go onto it, it's essentially as if your car is on ice on Mini XXL. We will have this week, of course, OGL, and next week to see how the players will manage to perform on this and what kind of techniques they'll go for here. But as you see, all the players' cars kind of skating off a little bit here and trying to straighten up the line as quickly as possible to get themselves the best possible amount of speed going into the finish. But even looking at that, I mean, it looks as if it's anyone's game going into this map.
Yeah, it's a technique that is hard to explain, and it's probably also hard to do consistent. But yeah, our man Pack is at the 15th spot, potentially losing a lot of points here already. So the story I brought up that he has finished 4 times in a red position after a break seems to continue so far, at least.
And I mean, he is finding himself 7th in the step ranking, but that is including 28 points from this step alone. So definitely someone to watch out for, but someone I feel that we've kind of not talked about as much throughout this season in general as Rollin, of course, one of the other Orgless players. I mean, I suppose Rollin's kind of flown under the radar this season. I would say, I mean, especially in the beta season and the kind of first half of it, so to speak, he had a bit of kind of issues emerging out into a player that you were watching, as he kind of had a bit of time coming up to speed. Would you say that Rollin's also had some trouble just kind of coping to the kind of step up in competition, or would you say there's some other reason we haven't been seeing Rollin's name too many times in the headlines?
Well, I have not spoken to Rollin about this, but seems like he barely made a beta season playoff. I think it will be hard for him now just because the competition is stepping up. If you just look at how many times he has placed top 5 on the 12 previous maps, that is 0. He has never been top 5 on a single step. So yeah, it doesn't look too promising for Rollin, but maybe he's gonna have a good second half of this league and prove us wrong and go to Lyon. But I wouldn't put my house on it, but yeah, you know my betting history so far in this Winter 2020 edition.
Yeah, so what that basically translates to everyone in the chat as that Rollin's going to win, essentially. But
You're the Winter 2020 champion.
yeah, exactly. But looking at our top 5, our top 6 actually, all within just under a second here, and we're seeing Papou coming out on top here so far, and also with the fastest lap. And I would say Papou has been one of the players that's evolved most with the kind of Zerator influence of Cups. We've seen him performing and kind of growing year on year in his performances on these sort of tracks. And it seems like the sky's the limit for Papou, being already regarded as the pretty much the best dirt player that's kind of ever set foot on the game almost. And seeing that he's developed so many advanced techniques into his repertoire, also having been a very solid tech player himself, I mean, you couldn't really ask for more versatile of a player.
Yeah, that's just to bring up that he's probably the best dirt player we have ever seen. Papou is not playing dirt anymore. He wants to take this style seriously. He wants to put everything into this and the Serrator Cup, of course. And he is maybe the guy who takes this the most serious. Hopefully everybody takes it serious. But his dedication to this game is second to none. And yeah, I believe he is the most underrated player in this league. And that just speaks volume because people already highly view him. But I think it should be up there with the big names like Kappa, CarlJr, Pack, and Spam. Like, he is one of the big players here, but now Bren is fighting to keep his points. Bren is fighting to keep his good step because, yeah, like we said, he's 16th in the league. He needs a good step to come back here and fight for a spot in Lyon.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not going to be game over if he does mess this up, but as we were saying with Massa previously, you really don't want to leave it too late. You really don't want to leave it to step 5 or step 6. Put all of that pressure on yourself to be performing. But we see one player showing up in the fastest lap so far, at least in lap 4, pardon me, and that is Massa coming in with the 112.2. Scrapie does still hold the fastest lap overall here. Your pick for the overall one, so I think that's possibly you one-upping me so far in the side bets, at least on map number 4. Scrapie looking strong.
Yeah, that's for sure. But Massa is actually surprising me because I expected Scrapie to do well. I expected Papou to do well. But Massa didn't feel confident on this map. But here he is battling with those two giants. Let's hope that Massa can keep it for the 2 last lap. Let's just pray in the chat, get some prayers in the chat for our man Massa. But also now, Matt is a sick battle for essentially from Kappa and up to the 8th spot there. A lot of players that can lose their points on this important 4th map.
Do you think Massa's driving is just like us betting, essentially?
Yeah, I think once he says a map is bad for him, well, then we know what's going to happen. We know what's happened once he said a map was good for him. Map 1, step 1. Then he jinxed himself on the very last identity there. So maybe he's joining this big clan family with, yeah, what you say is not going to happen.
Yeah, essentially, I mean, we can only count one sort of thing of which stays similar throughout all of this, so I can only really rely upon this being the fault of Big, to be honest. That's all that actually makes sense.
Riolo is losing his points.
Oh, Rielo's all the way down. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the miracles don't happen in Trackmania Grand League unless your name's CarlJr. So, to be honest, that is Rielo kissing his points goodbye. However, this is only map 4. So, of course, a lot of points can still be gained in the remaining maps. But at least for our man Massa, we're seeing him at least keeping tabs on the top 3 of a group, and for him to be performing very well on a map of which he is not comfortable with, having came from 2 last places in a row on the previous maps, I would say that while that may have played havoc on his confidence, this may have been just the thing to get his momentum back on track.
Yeah, but look at Matt, he's fighting for his 29 points, he's 1 second behind, and he also Rollin just some 2/10 behind to keep his 14, or to keep his 14 points. Yeah, last lap here. Essentially, points will be lost here.
Oh yeah, for sure, but we're seeing going into the identity for the final time, Scrapie is going to be the one securing the €100 with the fastest lap as well, so maximum points going the way of Scrapie. Papou finishing it up as well, and going into the battle for 8th place, we see MarciN falling by such a minute amount of time. We're talking thousands of a second there. We're seeing Rollin losing, but yeah, I mean, talk us through the amount of people and some of the names losing points there.
Yeah, I mean, look at them. Already Matt is, now it's 7 map after the break. 7 out of 7 maps possible. He has finished in a red position. This doesn't look promising. And then we also brought up Bren, who should be trained a lot on this step. Well, he's 12th. He's losing 26 points. But it's good that we at least have 2 more maps to play for Matt, Bren, Pack, and Riolo, who all lost more than 20 points.
Yeah. And we're seeing still some familiar faces down in the red zones now, at least after step one. I mean, 2 players again, which I'll kind of bring back on. One of them that I expected to be performing better. Of course, Revo, as we've mentioned previously, but also our Air France Cup champion, Cocow. I mean, I barely find myself talking about Cocow within the past few steps, much in the same way of Rollin, as it feels as if, I don't know, there's something off about Cocow's performance, as he hasn't been seeming to set the top positions alight as we may have expected him having the capability to do so.
Yeah, and if you take the losing points away, Cocow is still third last in the league. He's just collected 57 points overall. That is with the loss of points he has as well. So he doesn't gather a lot of points. But yeah, new map, maybe a new Cocow as well. Side bet, do you pick Cocow or who do you pick?
Right, so I would say if we're going to go for a side bet, I'm going to go for one of which is in or not expected to do well. I'm going to go for Cocow. Yeah, I'm going to remain true with who I always joke around with being the tallest man on the world. But at the very least, who are you going to have as your bet for the for our side bet, the most important part of TMGL?
Okay, I'm gonna be crazy. I'm gonna say that Scrapie is gonna win 2 in a row here. I picked him to win the last map. He did so that was a good bet for me. Let's see if I can keep the streak rolling. Let's see if Scrapie can keep it rolling. Who did the chat has? I see someone as well picking Scrapie the last time. Do you also pick Scrapie this time? Or who do you in the chat pick? I believe now the break is over. I'm over, or I'm not over. I'm getting started. So let's see. But yeah, a lot of points here to be lost. CarlJr with the most amount of points once again.
For sure, but we've seen a lot of names there who have been prone to losing points. We've seen Spam on good points, Massa, Scrapie, and also CarlJr having been kind of known to lose points now. At least he's been looking shaky in some maps. And Directionless is, again, I would say this map is... It reminds me a little bit more of the Steps map in Step 1, of course. There is a lot of techniques to this and a lot of places where you can go wrong. There's a lot of blocks here of which you'll see now as we see Papou failing straight away. A lot of blocks here which turn your steering off, so you need to fully commit to this block. Of course, if you go over it and you do not have the right angle, you are doomed. You are broken. Your points are lost. You know, like it's of course very hard to come back from, especially on such a map where the players have been showing very strong consistency, at least in the training, but again, there's a lot that can go wrong here, and I imagine we're going to see a lot of players struggling.
Yeah, Massa is actually finding himself in 14th position now, so the map he had last time can be lost here, but it's still so close. If you take away Papou, every player is within a reach of actually winning this map.
Oh, and we see Pack having some issues going over the steering killer, if we'll just call it that, because that sounds significantly more dramatic. He actually messes up and has to go far too wide, and that's going to be Pack down and almost out of the round already, pretty much. But we're seeing the man who people were talking about having trained so much more, and I was remembering people saying this is going to be the marquee map for him, but Bren up in first place, and we see CarlJr crashing again in the place where we're seeing players falling down already, which is the first steering killer, where we're already seeing people like Revolution, Papou, and CarlJr being claimed in just simply one section of track, showing how lethal this track can be.
Yeah, but it also seems like a map that doesn't have too much water between the bolts. So maybe now that CarlJr actually made a mistake, that it's going to be hard to get up to the top 8, because maybe the top 8 position won't do a mistake. And I don't believe CarlJr is that fast that he's just going to catch up 2 seconds to essentially an 8th player. But it's CarlJr, anything can happen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we saw countless times the beta season where CarlJr would look down and out, and then, like, the rest of the field would part like the Red Sea, where he would just cleave through his opposition with them having made mistake after mistake. I think it is just something with seeing the name CarlJr behind you that really kind of turns a switch in people's minds that no other name does.
Yeah, imagine being at 8th spot, okay, I'm safe, and then you see at 9th spot, well, it's CarlJr, you're like, okay, essentially I'm below the safe position at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the name does strike fear into people as much as the name of Eric Holdal. But speaking of the names of which are mattering, at least here in this map, is of course Bren here up in first position, having only 4 points to his name and 10 points overall. This map is absolutely crucial. There is no other way of saying it. But we do actually see Scrapie dropping down slightly here, and Massa down into the danger zone as well.
Yeah, Massa and Rollin in a close battle here, both with over 20 points, so that can be a battle to look after, but we're still only on lap 3, so we're halfway through it. But CarlJr is catching up. He's now below 2 seconds to that, or now it's actually more than 2 seconds, but he's looking to come back. Do you believe he's going to come back? Yes or no?
I'm going to say yes, because I'm seeing some of the players just above him, the likes of Cocow and Rollin, we've seen being a little bit shaky in the later laps. So I'm going to say anything can happen, and especially when you're seeing players like Massa and MarciN, who have been having issues as well when the heat's been turned on. Realistically, anything really can happen for CarlJr. I'm going to say yes, I'm going to put my faith in him. However, I suppose that wasn't very well placed last week and through my side bet today, so who knows. But we're also seeing Kappa down in this fight, and I would say this has been quite an underwhelming step for Kappa.
Yeah, it's gone under the radar so far. After the break last time, we remember that he started with 2 map wins in a row. That's essentially why he won the step overall. So far, it doesn't look like it's the same Kappa that shows up. Maybe he's tricking us and gonna boom it on the last map, or maybe it doesn't feel that confident this step.
Yeah, maybe it is going to boom it, or maybe we've just been absolutely scammed. But at the top, we are seeing Bren here once again staying in the lead. However, getting closer and closer is Eric Holdal's #1 bet, which is Scrapie, holding the fastest lap, at least in this lap, by 3/10 of a second. And our man here, Cocow, stepping up as well with a lap in the top 3. Cocow's looking good here. However, we are seeing in the bottom 8, we are seeing Oserv and Massa. However, we saw MarciN making a mistake, colliding with the wall, and we're seeing also Kappa in this battle here. This is a lot of points that can be lost. We have 2 laps left to go, but CarlJr is closing in.
Yeah, just looking at the below the 8th position, you have Bren with 4 points, Riolo with 1 point, Cocow with 2 points, Rollin with 5 points. That means that there are big points below the 8th position. So yeah, players with the least amount of points.
Rollin crashes.
Yeah. Who's down?
Rollin.
Oh boy. That secures our Massa spot in the top 8 position at the moment.
Oh, but look at Kappa. Kappa is side by side. We have seen battles like this, of course. Again, as we make the point so often, these are players who are very well used to competing with each other, but Kappa has to respawn. He didn't get the right angle coming off of that jump, and he has to respawn as he was going to hit the black pillar, and he goes too wide. He's lost a lot of time, and he hits it again. That's game over for Kappa. 18
last
points.
Lap.
Down the toilet, we go into the last lap, and who else is behind Massa but CarlJr?
Oh boy, this is a test for Massa. Can he keep his head cool? Does he even know that it's CarlJr that is behind him?
Oh, but actually Oserv crashes! Oserv's down!
And now CarlJr is 8th.
What did I tell you? At parts like the Red Sea, miracles only happen when your name is CarlJr, ladies and gentlemen. And the closest person behind him is 1 second behind, and his name is Matt. And he is going to need to go all or nothing. And we've seen Matt being one of the players who can really pull off these sort of techniques and these sort of difficult sections. Probably the fastest, however, he has it all to do and not very much left to do it in. But as we just quickly jump up to the lead here, going through the final identity, we see Bren in the lead. Is he going to keep it going through the final jump? He will. That is €100 and 20 points in the pocket of Bren. Scrapie second, Riolu third, Spam fourth, Cocow fifth, strong showing, Tween sixth, Massa 7th, CarlJr surviving with his points in 8th, but there is once again a lot of points being left in the bottom 8.
Yeah, that's for sure. But Bren is now claiming to be actually a prepared player once again. Imagine if he has kept his point from the last map as well. This is a different Bren we're seeing. But yeah, my pick wasn't too far off with Scrapie. Scrapie is really good this step. Let's see if there's going to be a Scrapie story or not. Let's see if he can actually keep his points on the last map, or if this will be actually a new record in the most amount of points he has lost on the last map. He's the point leader now, Scrapie.
Yeah, he is the points leader now. Either that or he's joint with Carl.
Yeah, joint, yeah.
Oh no, he got the +2, so he'll actually be in front of Carl. Is the fastest lap once again for Scrapie, and I guess that's kind of a story for Scrapie. He is always one of the fastest players, but there's always that little block that stops him from being one of the very, very best in the world. Where when you're mentioning your names like Tween, or when you're mentioning your names like CarlJr, there's always something that seems to have stopped Scrapie throughout the years. Perhaps now that he's had a little bit of a push from the drama he's had with Existence, maybe this is Scrapie's season.
Yeah, Scrapie, like you mentioned, he's fast. He has had a fastest lap on every step so far, but he has never had more than one fastest lap. I believe he has already had 2 fastest laps now, but yeah, Scrapie is looking really good. But it's the map 6. Anything can happen here. It's an identity that is gonna claim some victims. Do you have a side pick here? Who do you pick as a side bet?
Right, I'm going to go as a side bet. I'm going to go Tween once again, as there's just something about Tween in this map that I feel Tween throughout the years has been one of the players whose precision has just been on another level. So I think this map kind of suits him, and I can only see Tween staying in the top 8 and getting himself some more points.
I go for a hat trick. I pick Scrapie once again.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Let's see if I finally jinxed him or not.
You're going all the way to try and jinx him here. I see what you're doing. But remember, for those in the chat, of course, if you want to put your support in for these players, as they'll sure need it going into the final map, this is where it's all on the line. It's all or nothing. You put your cards down on the table or you lose all of your points. Hit go, space, and then any one of these players to put your support towards them. And also, if you want to be in with a chance of the giveaway, ! giveaway, and the prize will be drawn just after we're done here. And you can win a Trackmania game key, you can play it yourself, you can create a second account, and you can also have, you know, you can gift it to one of your friends. Do whatever the fuck you want with it. We don't care, as long as you enjoy it. But starting off on map number 6, are we going to see any of these top 8 losing points, Eric?
Of course we are, but who is the question? Massa is our player to follow here. He has actually, on the last map on step 1, on step 2, he has finished above the 8th position. So now, let's see if he can do it. This is the most important time for Massa to actually finish above the top 8 so far in the league.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I would say through his performance in the last 2 maps, it is leaning towards him keeping his points this step, but this is one of the maps where it really can just be a slight hesitance can completely ruin you. You know, yep, we've seen a lot of clips from it, but we're going to see it right here and in the flesh, and we're seeing quite a strong lead here at the moment, being eked out already from Papou, Bren and Riolu, going through a first kind of section of the identity here, a big long jump and jumping straight into a booster here just
Kappa
over, and we see Kappa actually falling down already. And Cocow also having some issues, but we're going to see Bren and Papou for the first time going down this big jump, and Bren very close to the wall, and Riolu also failing it, and that just goes to show immediately.
Oh boy, Massa.
Massa's turtling.
Massa is over and out.
He's going to make it at the very least, and he's going to be able to respawn, but that is a lot of time lost.
Oh boy.
God damn.
This map is crucial. This is taking so many victims. And already
Bren,
on lap 1.
Bren flips upside down as well.
Oh boy. It's over now.
Yeah, I think
26 seconds behind the 8th position.
That's bonkers.
Yeah.
Look how many
He's 10th
people.
at the moment. He's losing 62 points at the moment.
Yeah, Scrapie's 10th, and the closest person behind him is 6 seconds behind him. Like, oh, I don't even know what to say. I mean, for me, if you'd survived this first time, I would be screaming at you in the chat, save this. You do not need to risk it. It doesn't matter, you know, if you feel fully comfortable with it. We're seeing, you know, very, you know, well-versed players getting claimed by this left, right, and centre, but we see Papou going down this like it's nothing. He doesn't care. He's used to this. It's all good, but for one, it's not. Tween, having made a big mistake, is this 48 points going down the toilet? Tween has recovered at least well, but he's overtaken by Kappa and Cocow. But we are only seeing 9 people having survived this identity in only 2 attempts so far.
Yeah, but the point you bring up there, how easy is it for a player that maybe you have trained it for 1 week, you maybe try to do it as fast as possible every time, and then you hear someone in your ear scream, save it, go slower. Then maybe your muscle memory is off. Is it actually easy to save something like this, where you have trained 1 week to have something just remembered in your muscles, how the technique, how to aim for the hole in the end there?
Well, in my perspective, at the very least, I as a player, especially on an identity that I know I would be having trouble with, would be trying multiple routes that I can rely upon, where I know I'm going to hit it 100%. And I know myself, I couldn't hit this 100%, and you're probably going to see that next week in OGL, if I even hit it 1%. But for this sort of thing, I would be training a way of which so that if I know if I'm clearing the points, I know I'm 100% going to be able to make that. But we do see Rollin. Oh, he made a big blunder there, but he does keep himself good. We are seeing some people at least starting to catch up here. Kappa now. So that is down to 8 people who have survived without crashing, or at least crashing badly in the identity. And yeah, I mean, we're seeing 5 people with 10 plus points in danger of losing all of them.
And your side pick, Tween, with 48 points, 18 seconds behind the 8th spot. That should be over and out, but it's Trackmania Grand League. You have 3 times the identity left. Anything can happen. But yeah, Spam is struggling. Spam, what's happened to him?
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. It looks as if he's made a mistake going over the little jump there, and he finds himself behind a lot of players here. I mean, sure, you can count on players ahead of you to make mistakes, but if one of the top 8 makes mistakes, Kappa, Cocow, and Riolu are far ahead of the queue than Spam to be taking home at least, or making advantage of any other mistakes people make.
Yeah, that's for sure. And we've talked a little bit about it. This is a good map for Matt. Matt is up there at the 2nd position at the moment. This can be a lot of points.
As we say that, he makes a mistake.
Oh boy, Jesus, I give
Oh, and a nice little trickster there from Matt, but it's not going to pay off, and he's going to be upside down. A lot of time going to be lost for Matt. He does unturtle himself, I think. No, he doesn't. He's going to have to respawn. That's going to pull him all the way to the back. Cocow, Riolu, all ahead of him. Rollin's failed it as well. This time, Massa's up in top into 11th. We've got 2 runs at this identity left, and no, I don't think anyone's safe.
No, like, I should shut my mouth.
Who are we going to cuss next?
Let's see, CarlJr. At least not my pick, Scrapie. 62 points, 6th position. This can be a banger of a step for Scrapie. Let's hope that the Belgian player can keep it together.
Yeah, I suppose he can only suffer so many heartbreaks. We shouldn't be cruel to him. Let's see. We're going to have Papou in first place on an uncharacteristic 4 points here. But just to show how vicious this identity is, Revolution is almost getting lapped.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, that just goes to show, you know. But we're going to take a look through Papou here, going into the identity for the penultimate time at the very least. He makes it, but he makes it upside down. Papou has to respawn. First place is down. That's going to be a lot of people overtaking him, and he messes it up again. This is more positions going down the toilet. Kappa's going to overtake him. Cocow's failing it as well now. Riolu's in top 7. And it looks like Massa's failed it as well. But Papou from first goes all the way down to 9th just by virtue of failing it once. As again, it just goes to show no one is safe. And Massa and Tween are even close to getting back in. Is this, as they say in the chat, the ultimate comeback?
Let's go win Massa. 2 seconds behind last lap. I mean, Tween, that should be more over and out. He's 9 seconds behind. But Massa is 2 seconds behind. He has to overtake 2 players. This is an important lap, maybe the most important lap of the season for Massa.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 28 points in the bag. That's keeping him in a top 8 here. There's a lot of names that are behind him at the very least, or battling along with him, who are already in the top 8. So he'll be desperately wanting to keep a hold of some hard-fought points to get him in the top 28. But we are seeing CarlJr, Aurel, and MarciN going through it for the final time. Are they going to make it through unscathed? Top 3 do. Pack does as well. Scrapie looks fine. Kappa also going through it. He's looking to go as safe as possible. He fails it too. Riolu gets through it, no problem. Matt as well. And Kappa's going to drop behind. Papou makes it through.
Massa's 9th.
And Massa is just at the position. And one less mistake here, and Kappa drops it. Tween drops the points. We are seeing a lot, and Spam once again dropping points. That's 43 points down the toilet now, and he'll be very close to the record of the most amount of points lost in a season, and he's only 3 steps in, I reckon.
I mean, Spam was the leader in the most amount of points lost before this. That's not a statistic you want to lead. Now he's just making that lead even bigger. Tween is probably following him now. He's also lost over 100 points in the season overall. But yeah, Spam, it's sad to see. But at least he proves to have the level in him. But yeah, our boy Massa, 9th. Just one position to keep his points there, but ends up with 5 points.
Yeah, I suppose the way to look at it is 9th. It is the top position of the people who at least did lose their points. I suppose that is some sort of consolation, especially as as at least some people he's been battling with are around the same kind of time, or same kind of points at the very least. But as we look into how that affects the step ranking here, so we see CarlJr now double the points of his closest rival, 191, and Riolu, having lost all of his points there, finds himself now on 97 points. Oh, sorry, not losing all his points, pardon me. 97 points. Kappa moving down to 3rd. Scrapie all the way up to 4th now from being bottom 8. And really, the positions have been shaken up so much. It's like I was saying, one good performance and so many more people are in danger.